Hey, what's up everybody? It's Porsche, also known as Gildenlock in other places. And in today's video we're going to be talking about all the changes that have been made to patch 1.07 of Don't Even Think. They've added, let's start with the main features going forward. They've added a function for human players to invite PlayStation friends for team matchmaking. And this has been a hugely requested feature to be added to the game. I'm very happy to see this implemented. This is going to bring it more in line with modern PlayStation 4 games, and was the most requested feature. It's going to definitely bring balance to the overall game, and a lot of fun, so very happy to see this implemented. Next up on the main features, they've added an observation mode for human players. I have yet to figure out how to access this, but it is in the patch notes, so keep a look out there. Next up, we've got the adjustments for the human players. Number one, they've adjusted the movement speed while walking empty-handed. Now, I haven't noticed a big change in the speed, but for those who aren't familiar with it, there's the very important tactic of switching out of your guns in order to move faster across the map, because especially late game, if you're going for the win, moving quickly across the map to get a map fragment in time can be very important. So, very important to know any changes on that, even if they're subtle. Next up, we have an optimized combat capability for the Winchester 1887 and the M1014. So, in short, what that means is a big old shotgun buff. Another very welcome change. Sort of an indirect buff to the humans, which I'm very happy to see. The Winchester still feels like a bit of a weak gun, and maybe the shotguns could use a little more buffing, but overall this is a very welcome change and a significant improvement to the drop off range and the overall damage, and I'm not sure if they fixed the hit detection, but it feels like they did, and it's just overall a very welcome change to the game. As you can see, the combination of this and another change has made the early game werewolves more reasonable to deal with, since I had a pretty decently strong shotgun there. Number 3, they've adjusted the camera sensitivity while using weapons. And again, this isn't really a balance change, but it is very, it's an important thing for players to note. I felt like the sensitivity in the default settings is way too low, so for those who know how to tweak things and perfect things and, bring things in line where they can, things are really optimized, is an important little change to note. And yeah, it's nice to see that there as well. Number 4, they've optimized the damage to werewolves from helicopter guns. Now this is another very welcome change, as I felt like the original damage from the helicopter guns was way too low. And you will definitely notice a significantly greater sting on those helicopter guns. The werewolves are still very dangerous in endgame. I've managed to grab a couple kills while getting shot at by the helicopter guns. But definitely it was a much more painful experience than it used to be, and I think the helicopter guns took me out after I grabbed a couple kills on the pad. So again, they're not the totally deadly guns they should be, but significantly more dangerous than they used to be. And now I want to talk about the 5th change for humans. They've changed the number of evacuees to 3, and they've really kind of revamped the whole evacuation system. You can see it here in the footage. So the system's been kind of totally overhauled. Originally it was one person hops in the helicopter and their entire team gets credit for escaping. Now it's just 3 players total, and in a weird way, in this clip I almost feel like I'm racing my own teammate for the evac point. Which is maybe it's a little controversial. I don't know how everyone feels about that. But I think it's an overall good change. I feel like it'll definitely change the whole psychological dynamic of endgame, and I feel like it'll incentivize players to fight a lot harder at the end game, which is just makes the game more compelling overall. So overall, it's different. Overall, I'd say I'm happy to see the change being put into the game here. And let's go on to the changes to the werewolves. Now, this is like the next change that I'm going to mention is they kind of like almost like 4 changes in one. They've added 2 they've really overhauled the whole werewolf abilities. So they've added Scent Hunter and Howl, and they've modified the 2 existing abilities. So the Strike's been completely overhauled. It's now a lot more difficult to unlock, but a lot easier to use. And the dash unlocks quite a bit faster. So just to go kind of counterclockwise, well, you can get the dash, which has always been in the game, very quickly and easily, with just like not even that many corpses eaten. Just a handful of corpses, and you're gonna have the Howl ability, which is kind of like you wouldn't really believe how strong it is, the ability to communicate with other werewolves. I've seen it really. It's definitely the human improvement to coordination has been increased, but this is another thing to kind of help. I feel like bring the werewolves in line with that. I've called in and both called in and responded to werewolf calls. And I'm seeing the werewolves teaming up much more frequently, especially when one of them gets in a pinch. So it's a deceptively powerful ability, the Werewolf Howl. And again, it's kind of it will depend on the other players and if they choose to respond to that. But overall, I just rate it overall based on what I've seen typically from the werewolf behavior. It's a very, very powerful addition to the game, and it's unlocked quite early. Doesn't take that many bodies to get a hold of that. Next up, they've got the Scent Hunter. You'll need a good amount of bodies, maybe a couple body piles to unlock this, but it's very powerful. Basically, you're talking about X-ray vision for the werewolves. There's an like with the Howl, there's an animation that has to play before it starts, and where you're frozen in place. But I mean, you've basically got X-ray vision for a minute, and the range on it, as you'll see in some of the clips, I think maybe like towards the beginning and end of the video, is pretty extreme. So, yeah, very powerful ability. And finally, they've completely overhauled the Werewolf Strike ability. And it is, it used to be like this very kind of clunky multi-button thing, and now it's basically you just tap. It takes a lot of bodies to unlock, maybe almost three whole body piles, or some combination of 2 body piles and whatever you find. But it's very powerful. It launches an automatic lock-on strike that does good amount of damage, and yeah, very important overhaul. Number 2, they've optimized it. Enemy targeting of werewolves. I don't have a clear idea of what that means, so we'll just continue to move on. Number 3, they've lowered the HP of the werewolf's initial human form. If you're kind of familiar with where the early game werewolves used to be, you kind of have been able to see that change. They used to be godly the whole game. Now werewolves really have to be careful when they're in their human form, because the HP's been dropped pretty significantly, and I feel like this is an overall welcome change. I think it is leading to a lot more werewolves who weren't aware of the change, or just were a little more reckless from where they used to be to die in early game. But yeah, early game werewolves have to be careful. If you find a lone human and you've got axe, you can probably still take them out pretty easily, but you just can't expect to walk into like a large group of humans and expect to just take them out while you're still in human werewolf form. That's just not going to happen anymore because of the lowered HP and other things. So, welcome balance change. Number 4, the deceleration effect of the immobilization effect that normally comes, instead of the immobilization effect that normally comes with werewolf attacks. So basically, no more stun locking as a werewolf. Now, some people have told me that the werewolf damage has gone up a bit to compensate, but overall I'd say this is a good balance change, and I never really enjoyed the stun lock from either perspective. I didn't enjoy being a human and stun lock people, and I didn't enjoy the kind of anticlimactic game over that happened once you stun locked a human as a werewolf. So this is a very welcome change, and happy to see that added into the game, and just make the human werewolf confrontations more balanced and more exciting overall. Number 5, they've relocated usage of the werewolf stamina. More rational use of stamina is needed to exert the best effect. So to put it simply, I feel like I have roughly about maybe 40% less stamina than I used to, and yeah, I think the amount of stamina the werewolves used to have was a bit ridiculous. And it's still if you know how to use your stamina intelligently and when to dash, you can still cover large areas of the map without ever having to pause. But it is it just feels it's just another sensible balance change that doesn't feel like it hurts the werewolf to play, and it's another addition I really don't want. Number 6, they've optimized the action performance of the werewolf and the werewolf's human form. So I'm not 100% on everything that covers, but I do feel like the like maybe they've optimized a bit, like when you go to eat a human. I feel it feels a little less clunky going to devour humans, so that's probably what that's in reference to. And again, simple change that just optimizes the game a little bit. Next, we'll move on. They've optimized the novice tutorial, so that annoying clunky interface that came in every time you started no longer has to do that. You just hit square. Basically, so let's just go into the points. Number 1, they've added a close function to permanently turn off the tutorial pane when human landing. Number 2, they've placed the tutorial diagram and the setting interface to view. So number 3, they've added tips when targeting an object. So what this means for you is that really obnoxious helper pane that comes in when the first time you land or the first time you burst out of the werewolf tube doesn't have to be there anymore. You just hit square and it pretty much goes away. And if you somehow feel like you missed something important, those panes are still available in your setting menu. So again, that was a smart little move on the developer to make sure their asses were covered and nobody missed out on anything permanently. And they've also added these little tool tips when you're looking at, bodies as a werewolf, or fires, or apple trees, or loot crates, or anything as human. So it's really not, as a vet, I really didn't find it obtrusive, and I'm sure the newer players appreciate that as an addition. Alright. Hey, this is the, now we're going to go into some miscellaneous changes. They've increased the gold bonus added at the end of the game, so it'll be even easier for people to grind out the cosmetics they want. Next up, they've added a mail system. Now, I've seen where it's implemented and how you access it, but I haven't seen any in-game mails come in yet. And I'm not sure if those mails will come from the dev or they'll add a way for us to send mails to each other. But it is an interesting thing to look at for over the horizon, and I'm sure that'll turn into an interesting little change. I know there's a lot of free-to-play games like Warframe with interesting mail systems, so I'll be looking forward to that. Now they've added a punk-style item in the store. So I've looked through the store. The main difference I noticed was there's a lot of there's like some mohawk haircuts or like some spiky hot pink haircuts, or everyone's got a new punk style haircut. There might be other things. I think the punk clothing has been in there for a while, but again, a nice little thing to help snazz up people's looks, or at least until they slap a helmet on their head. And yeah, more customization is better. So that's all the changes that I found in the patch notes. But importantly, I wanted to go over some of the changes I found that weren't listed, as I think that's a key thing. I've just noted a lot of audio changes and overall audio improvements, which I'm surprised didn't make it into the patch notes. I've noticed that the lobby music seems different. I've noticed a little different changes to the failure and victory screen, and I feel like little changes like this, like adding a little music when you either beat the game or die, I feel like it adds it's a little change, but sometimes the subtle little changes will really make or break a game. I feel like it's made Don't Even Think feel a lot more like climactic at the end of the matches, one way or the other. So again, very welcome change, and it seems like a small thing, but I'm happy to see it in there. And there just feel like there's a lot of overall audio changes, which are very welcome. And it looks like some more trophies have been rolling in for people, so that's another welcome change. And that's everything, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. I welcome all your feedback. And until next time, I shall see you Starside.